and this is what the admin center looks like. So this Microsoft 365 account is a tenant. Okay, if you're using the Bing browser, you can see over here at the top, that's Copilot. You can just drop a chat with Copilot and you would get a response. So what is a Microsoft 365 tenant? So if you read over here, just the first line, Microsoft 365 tenant is a dedicated instance of the service of Microsoft 365 and your organization's data stored within a specific default location. So just as you have a landlord and a tenant, Microsoft at this point would be the landlord or the owner of the building where you have stored your data and the apps you're using. So every single tenant is stored in a data center and there is a location for every tenant. We're going to be having a look at where the data for this tenant is stored. You could actually choose where your data is stored, but I really don't need that because this is just a developer tenant. Alright, so having a look around, if you notice, the option we picked for the office.com still applies here. And if you don't like this anymore, you can come over here and change this. Just pick anyone you like from here and proceed from there. Okay, so moving on now, if you see over here, we have show all. So I'd like us to see all of the menu we get with your Microsoft 365 tenant. And you don't need to go down to office.com every now and then. At the top left side of the screen, where you have the app launcher, the 9 dots there, click on that and it shows you all of your applications. Well, not all of them, but the major ones you use. So from time to time, this list will keep expanding depending on the applications you use. And if you need to see all of the apps and services, just click on this and that will come up. Okay, we are at the home page, and the first thing I'd like us to do is come over, because this is, like I said, this is a developer license or a developer tenant, and you get some, if you choose to, you could get some data pre-filled for you. So I'd like us to see what we were given. So at the top here, come to home, go to users, active users. So if you look over here, we have some users we did not create. So all of these users we may have created just one of them, maybe this, but all of these users were pre-filled. These are just dummy data. You can choose to change this or do whatever it is you want with this. So I just wanted you to see this, and let's go back to the home page. All right, so this is your dashboard, and on your dashboard you get to see the dashboard view. I'm going to explain some of this shortly. So to add a user, because what you basically do on Microsoft 365, you add users to use the service. Now you can add up to 25 users, because that's what your license allows you to add. And I'm going to show you how you know that, but let's just keep this simple for now. So this is your tenant. You can reset a password if you want to. You can add a team. So you can just create a new team or a new group. I'm going to explain all of that from here shortly. You can view your billing. So if you use the trial license, when you click on this point, you should see some things pop up. If you don't have this bar, not to worry, we are still going to get into all of this. So here has more settings. You can choose to go with the dark mode. Let's see what that looks like. So I prefer the dark mode actually, and I'll just zoom this bit. Okay, all right, so here has the name of your organization. So the name of my organization is not MSFT. So MSFT is Microsoft. So if you type MFST, should show you like the stock market of Microsoft, because that's what the name is. So MSFT is Microsoft. Okay, so it's called Microsoft because this is a developer tenant, and I have not changed this name. To change this name, it's quite simple. Click on this. But the way it is, for you to change this, you also need to change everything on this field. I'm not ready to do that right now, so I'll just leave that as it is. But if you want to, please go ahead. Okay, so looking down here, you're going to find Teams, Microsoft Teams. So it says Teams is on for your organization. You can turn this off if you want to, but I think you wouldn't want to do that. But you can turn this off, and you can check the status of new Teams users. You actually have new users. So if anyone is in a team, because by default, when you create a tenant, there is a team created for all users, a group actually created for all users. So every user is added to that group. You can come over here and change those settings. So we're going to discuss almost everything here with time. Now, this is a training guide. You can just click on any one of these and it's going to show you how to make use of your Microsoft 365 tenant. but I'm going to be showing you that as well, so you need not worry about that. Now let's go into everything that is on this section and see what we can do. So the first thing I like to do when I come into a tenant is to go to settings, domains, and then I have a look at the domain that's here. So this is the .onmicrosoft.com domain, and this is a default domain. You cannot delete this domain. Even if you try, you won't be able to, because this is the domain that comes with your tenant. Now this is like an identity for your tenant. This is something that stores all of your subscriptions and all of that. So you can delete anything else, but not this. So you can't delete this. But if you try to add a domain, let's say you have a custom domain and you want to add that, let's say contoso.com. So if I try to add this, use this domain. Now contoso.com, let me show you what that is. It should redirect you back to Microsoft.com. So that is what contoso.com is. It is owned and managed by Microsoft. So we'll go back there. So let's say I own this domain. Of course, I don't own this domain, so I can't use it. And let's say I have added all of these records. We are going to work on this, but not for now. Let's say I'm adding this right now, and it's verifying. Let's assume this verifies successfully, but it won't because I don't own this domain. Yeah, so it's supposed to give me this error message. So I'm going to close this now. If we look over here, you'll notice we have the contoso.com, but if you check here, it says incomplete setup. So I can delete this. It gives me the option to remove domain, so I can remove this domain. But I cannot do the same for this because this domain houses all of your licenses and a whole lot of other things. So you cannot take out this domain. You can change it from being your default domain, and we are going to do that in not long from now. So you can change your default domain and all of that. You can have other domains here. You could buy a domain, but you cannot delete this domain. That's the point I'm trying to make. So that's the first thing I check. And then when I'm sure of that, I know the domain I have. So the next thing I check is to go back to users, active users, and then I check here to see who is an admin. So let me explain this bar. This is to add a user, and if you add a user and you save that template, you could add a user and save the template. Okay, for instance, I add a user and I make that user a global admin. I could add another user using the template of the first user I had. So it's just going to provide me space to provide the name and some basic information, but not everything else because I had saved it as a template. We are going to see how this works. You can add multiple users by using a CSV file. I'll just click on that so you see how it works. You can use a CSV file, or you can just add their names here and the domain you wish. So if we had more than one domain, we would have more than one option here. And then when you're done with this, you just click on next and proceed from there. So coming back here, we just explained this. So the next will be multi-factor authentication. So multi is a term that says more than one. So Microsoft does not operate the two-factor authentication. They operate the multi-factor authentication. Now there's always questions as to what's the difference between two-factor and multi-factor. So two-factor is just for two methods of authenticating or showing that you're a legitimate owner, while multi-factor is at least two methods. So you have the Copilot here. You can always ask what the difference is between the two-factor authentication and multi-factor. You can always also do that here. You can just ask what the difference is on the Bing browser. And then the Bing browser also has an AI that helps you to answer questions quickly. Okay, so we're going to be discussing this, but not just yet. And we have the delete user. So if you click on this, it means you would want to delete a user. So let's do that. Click on delete user. And then it asks you to pick which user you'd like to delete. Let's say Alex. I'll just click on Alex and delete. Remember, these are just users that were pre-created with the developer tenant. So if I delete this, I wouldn't be hurting anything on the system. Okay, so what it does is to check. That's why it takes a while. It checks to see if you have any permissions or settings or anything else you have on this user. So it will grant all of those access and permissions and write and data to someone else. You can just choose to do that from here. But if you don't want to do that, then just go ahead and click delete. And Alex is gone. So if you look over here, Alex disappeared as well. I'll just close this. So that's how to delete a user. That's one way. Another way would be, let's say I need to delete let's say Isaiah. You can just click on Isaiah and come over here to delete, and the same screen pops up. You can just click delete and Isaiah is gone. So be very careful who you delete, and be very careful how you use the delete key, because some of these users, when you delete them, depending on how you delete them, you may be able to get them back, but if you leave them there for too long, they may be deleted for life. Okay, so that's gone as well. So Isaiah is out of the picture. So if you need to reset a password for someone, this is where you do that. So this refresh icon is just in case if we had deleted Isaiah and Alex and we didn't get to see the changes here, just click on the refresh and then it gives you a brand new list of the actual users there. So to reset a password, you either click on the user, reset the password, or you click on reset password and the same thing happens. It asks whose password would you like to reset. Let's say it's this user. I'll click on this user, hit select if I just want to reset for one user. So if you want to reset for more than one, so let's say I want to do that for more than one user, I'll do for Adele and just hit select and require user to change the password when they first sign in and automatic generate. I'll just click on these two. So what this will do is it will provide a new password and show me that password, so I can send this password down to these users and have them sign in with the password. But then these passwords are only temporal. When these users sign in, they would be required to reset their own password themselves. So they're going to be providing a new password. So what this does is if a user had forgotten their password, maybe they lost their password or they didn't remember it, what you can do is reset the user's password from here and then provide them with the password and have them reset their password. Alright, that's that about that. I opened up the recommendation, so I'll just close this and we are going to proceed. Let's say you want to export all of your users in a CSV file. You can do that and click on this. It opens up in an Excel workbook. And here are all of the users. Just expand this. So here are all of your users. Assuming you were asked to send a list of all of your users and the date they last signed in, whether they are blocked from signing in or not, you can do that from here. So if you see this, there are different departments where these users are, and if you check closely, we don't have Isaiah or Alex in the list because we removed them, and many of them have phone numbers. These are just dummy phone numbers, and these are the postcode. So this Excel workbook gives you an overview of all of these users information, and here are their user principal name. A user principal name is something that is unique to a user. So usually every user has a unique username, which is the Adele V at your domain. So that username usually would be unique across your entire environment. Okay, so I'm done with this. That was how to export your data, and let's just zoom. So that was a run through of what you get from just the active user side. And if you click on filters here, it would help you to check who is an admin and who isn't. This is one part you need to be very careful and particular about, because anyone that has global admin access can remove you from the organization as the owner. So check on global admin. And if you see here, we have 2 users with global admin access. So be very sure these users absolutely need to have this access before you give that to them. So when we create users, I'm going to be explaining a little bit on what these access mean. So I just clear the filters from here, and that's that for this section. So I'll go to contact. We may not have any contact here because we haven't created any. So a contact, you can create a contact this way. Just provide contact information like test. Okay, let's say Mike, John, and the display name comes out automatically, Mike John at email.com. So this is not an actual email address, so they're just going to use this. If you want to hide this user from the global address list, you can do that. So a global address list is a list that has all of your users information, so you can see those users. I'll give you an example. So let me give you a classic example. Click on this and open up Outlook. So this is your Outlook. We are going to discuss a whole lot, so I'm jumping from place to place because it's quite important for you to understand what a global address list is. So for this user, I haven't saved this user yet. So let's say I add this user here. So this could take a while. So sometimes it could take up to an hour, depending on how often your global address list refreshes. So this email address will be available to everyone. You could send an email to them, but not quite yet. Let's go back to active users. And then let's see, there is a Henrietta here. Let's try to send an email to Henrietta. So I didn't need to type every single letter of her name. When I started typing, there was a suggestion. So this was made available or made possible because I have a global address list. So that global address list keeps all of your address, and that's what allows you to see them here. Now, everything on Microsoft are deliberate. So if you choose to hide a user or in a contact, or if you choose to hide a user from the global address list, that user will not be available for users to see globally. It doesn't mean you won't be able to send an email to that user. You still will be able to. All right, so that's contact and guest users. So you could add a guest user. We are going to do this later on. So to add a new guest user, you need to manage this user from your Entra portal or your Azure AD, but it's now known as the Entra or the Identities portal. So your Entra, there's a portal called your Entra, which is the identity down here. We would be working with adding a guest user with time, but not just yet. Let's just give that some time, and we're going to see how that is done. So deleted users, this is like a recycle bin for users we had deleted. If you remember, we deleted Alex and then we deleted Isaiah as well. So I'm going to just click on this to restore that user. So it's going to ask to generate a password or allow you to create a password for the user. So it's best to generate and then make this user change the password, because you never can tell what may have happened between the period you deleted this user and the period you're trying to restore them. So hit restore. And it restores that user. This is the display name, this is the user's email address, and this is a new password. So you can choose to send this password to an email address, just provide an email address to send this password to, or you can just copy this password and send it down to the user and have them sign in. So the moment they sign in, they'll be prompted to change their password. That's how this works. And we only have Alex here. So if you click on Alex, you have all of these options. You can choose to restore Alex. So let's click on restore. And Alex is being restored. Okay, you can do the same thing. Send the password in an email and send it down to that user. So I'm going to send this in an email. Send it this right now. We should get that prompt here. So this is the user and this is his username and his password. You can just provide this to him. Okay, so that's how that works. I'll go back to this point, and that is that for this section. We haven't discussed the guest user side yet, and we haven't created a user. So let's go on to creating a user. So there are different ways you can create a user, as we have discussed. So you're going to be creating a user now. Let's add a user. You can just type in here Mike. I know we have a Mike, so we're going to have another Mike, Joseph. And we have Mike Joseph here. So in this email, you need to provide something unique. Mike. It checks to see if there's a Mike, and there isn't a Mike. Joseph. This is available, but you might need to stick to a convention. So the convention we already have here is the user's name and the first letter of their surname. So this is what we can do. Hit next. It brings you to a point where you need to choose if you'd like to assign a license or not. You can click here to assign a license. We have 9 of 15 licenses available. So this means we have used up 11 licenses. So if I uncheck this, it goes back to 10. I check this, it stays on 9. So you can click over here to see all of the apps and services that comes with that license. You can choose to uncheck some of the licenses from here. If you don't want them to have a service or an application, you can just choose to uncheck it from here. So there's a Copilot. You can choose to uncheck, but I'm not going to do that. You can choose to uncheck Avatar for Teams, but I'm not going to do that. And that's a feature we're going to discuss later on. So all of these are the services and applications that come with your Microsoft 365 E5 subscription. and the developer tenant or the developer license has this as well. All right, I'll just click next, and over here you need to pick a role. So if you choose to give this user an admin role, you can pick one of the roles from here. So the highest role is the global admin. This is arranged in alphabetical order. That's why Exchange is at the top. So if someone has this role, that person will be able to perform the task everyone else will be able to perform. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck this, and if he has the Exchange role, to know more about this, you can just hover your pointer over here, and it says full access to Exchange Online. So Exchange Online is another service of Microsoft 365 that we are going to be discussing. Alright, so the global admin, this person has unlimited access to every single thing on your tenant. So you want to be careful who you give this to. So global reader, this person can view all administrative features and settings in all admin centers. So if you look carefully, it says view. Okay, I think that was small. So if you look carefully, it says can view all admin features and settings. So everything that admin does, this person can view them, but this person can't change them. Help desk. So see what it says, reset passwords and re-authenticate for all non-admins. So this person can perform tasks on non-admins, but not on admins. Service support administrator, create service requests for Azure, Microsoft 365 and Microsoft 365 services, and monitors service health. So we're going to talk about service health later on. Service health helps you to know what's working fine and what's not working fine on Microsoft 365. SharePoint admin, this person has access to SharePoint. Teams admin, this person only has access to Teams and Skype. So Skype and Teams, I would hope that Skype will be deprecated and Teams would be what will be used in the nearest future, but we'll just wait and see what happens. So user admin, this person can do anything on users but not on admins. So this user can change passwords, create and manage users, groups, and all of that. That's what this person can do. Okay, so you want to know more about all of this, you can click here, or you can just go to Copilot and ask Copilot to explain what those are. So these are categories as well. You can choose which category you wish to assign to this user. And so for the categories section, you can choose which of these categories you want to assign. Like I said, you can just check here to see what all of these do. You can also go to the Microsoft documentation. I'm going to provide the link in the description below. You can also add a title for this user. What title would you like to add? Support engineer. And what department? IT. Office, HQ, which is headquarters. Phone number, you can provide that. Fax, mobile number, street address, and all of this. Country, you can change this. Actually, I'll keep this at Nigeria. And that's that. I'll just hit next. Okay, it says we did not provide a role. Let's go back and see. Yeah, we clicked on this but did not provide the role. So I'll just create this user without the role, or I can give this user the Exchange admin role. So just go next, hit finish. Okay, if you see here, this user has been created. You can just send this down to the user. If we come down here, we are given the option to save this user settings as a template. So remember the last time I said you can create a user from a template. We are going to do that right now. So I can just say Exchange user. I like to keep it this way, that way I know it's just something and not just a role I created. You can add a description here for Exchange users, and you can save this. Alright, so templates have been saved. You can close this point. If we check, we should have a Mike. Yes, we do have a Mike Joseph. And he has a role of Exchange admin. Okay, we're going to have a look at all of this shortly. So let's say I need to create another user. I can, first of all, uncheck this. So if something isn't working right, take your time to check, and then we didn't get all of these options because I was on mic. So the option changes when you're on someone else. Uncheck this, and we need to use add a user from template. So